Welcome back to the CHARA Project. This week, we're going to be talking about John chapter 13. And this is where Jesus and his disciples are all gathered in the upper room, where Jesus begins to teach his kind of final instructions. But something really special and unique and kind of odd to the disciples happened. And that's when Jesus washes the disciples' feet. Now, I don't know about you guys, but in that setting, if somebody were to wash my feet, especially my Lord and my Messiah, I would probably not be okay with it, right? Because culturally, the foot washing happened because the streets were disgusting. The streets of Palestine were dusty and dirty, and the disciples traveled by foot, and so their feet were pretty gross.
Well, and it was normally a servant that was the one that was washing the feet.
That's right.
Not necessarily the host, of the meal.
Right. So normally, if you're going to host a dinner party, you're going to have a servant who's going to be the foot washer. But Jesus changes all of that up when he kneels down to begin to fill the water and wash the disciples' feet. Actually, Peter gives some pushback, doesn't he?
Yes.
We can read in chapter 13, verse 8. Peter says, "You will never wash my feet." Ever. He's kind of bossy, right?
We love Peter.
Yeah.
"You will never wash my feet." But to which Jesus replies, "If I don't wash you, you have no part of me." And right there, that just speaks that Jesus is trying to, again, show them who he is and what is required of them in order to be with him, right? He needs to clean them. So it's just fascinating that.
But yet, I totally get where Peter's coming from. You know, I don't know if you guys have ever had your feet washed before. I was in high school, and I remember a group of us from our church decided that one evening we would go through what these disciples went through, and our friends were having to wash each other's. I had to wash somebody's feet, and they had to wash mine, and it was awkward, and it was weird, and I mean, it's uncomfortable, and for some reason I think that it would be different as if it was a servant whose job it was to wash your feet. I'd still feel a little awkward, but at least it would be different because it was a servant doing it. Man, going through the reality of having somebody wash your feet, it's humbling. And it's a little bit oh gosh, I feel like there's this, you have to humble yourself, but you also have to be okay with accepting the gift that these people are giving you. And it's not easy. I don't know, like feet are not something I want people touching. And so just to have it not just be a servant, but to be Jesus. And after all John has uncovered and unpacked that Jesus is the Son of God, and he's at their feet kneeling and just being so vulnerable with them. And the servant attitude that he has in this passage is just encouraging and also humbling for us today.
For sure. Even in, if we go to chapter 13, verse 16, Jesus says this, "Truly I tell you, a servant is not greater than his master, and a messenger is not greater than the one who sent him." And so I just can't imagine everything they've learned up until this point. It's like they know, but he's now not only telling them, and they've been watching him this whole time. He's showing them physically, personally, what this means.
Continually surprising them about the kind of king he was. About the kind of Messiah he was. Not always what they expected. And what I love about what you start to see in the rest of John 13 is he goes on to tell them, hey, that one of you is going to betray me. So that this is a huge surprise, right? And if you join us in the study, you're gonna capture all of this with us. Right after he talks about and identifies Judas as the betrayer, he gives them a new command. And I love this. It's all the way in verse 34. "I give you a new command. Love one another." And I think this last part is key. "Just as I have loved you, you are also to love one another." And so for me, I guess the question that it begs for me is, well, okay, right after Judas is talking about a betrayer, someone who's deeply, deeply hurt him, now he's telling us to love one another. Do you mean him? Do you mean people who hurt us? Do you mean, like, it's
everyone,
right? And he says, "As I have loved you." And later on in John, he says, this is the grace, what is it? It's in 17. "The greatest way I show my love is when you lay down your life for your friends." Thank you. And that's what Jesus did. He laid down his life. That's how he showed us our love. And if you go to Romans 5, it says, who did he die for? He died for the helpless. He died for the sinners. He died
Ungodly.
for enemies. And in other verses, and it talks about loving your enemy. Now that is a challenge. Wouldn't you say, right?
Yeah. Totally.
And he gives us that example.
That's right. And I don't know about you, but if I were sitting in there and would I respond like Peter? I mean, I believe Jesus is the Son of God. I've been following him all this time. And Jesus wants to now serve me. And how would I respond to that? Would I be like Peter and be like, there's no way you're washing my feet. Right. No way. No way. But Jesus displays his servanthood in the way he served the disciples. And I think that's beautiful.
That's a good point. It's really a great place to start as we start in John 13 and work our way through the rest of it, that he lays down this foundation, this example.
Yeah.
Just sets the scene.
It does.
Completely.
And this chapter 13 is really fun to look at the CHARA Essentials. And when we take a look at history, if you download this on our website, you can go right to the link if you're on Instagram, to our link that you can download it, or you can go to our website, go to resources and download it. But uncovering the history of this chapter is so important because if we don't know the history, what does foot washing mean?
Right,
we don't understand what Jesus is doing if we don't understand the history. So take some time and dive into that. Again, if you have a study Bible, you'll be able to read, a little bit more and understand what that actually meant.
It shares some
the
of that.
weight that it felt.
And you'll be able to follow along with the Bible study as we uncover some of the things we found as we studied the Bible on our blog. So that's a great way for you to be able to walk through John 13 in a really real way with us.
That's right. We're really glad you joined us today, and we can't wait to join you next week when we unpack John chapter 14. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.